this is the first time you have people who were at the forefront of the struggle occupying, Aso Rock. So the country and the democratic class cannot afford to fail. This 30-year struggle, and both the president and the vice president had been members of the National Assembly. They've been senators. Both of them have been state governors, 8 years. So they are leading, and they can speak to, relate with the subnational. They can relate with the legislator. So they have no reason to fail. And the rest of us should also not give them any excuse. They need to succeed, regardless of the daunting task that the global reality presents. So it is in that regard that I will, contribute my own, 3 very simple suggestions. And the first is that I see what, the government is doing, trying to find money with which to run the government, with which to maintain people's welfare, to transform its infrastructure. And I have a very simple message for them as far as fiscal struggle, fiscal situation is concerned, that the major lesson coming from the global uncertainty is that the age when you can rely on GDP or income to generate the resources you need to run government is in the past. We are facing a post-industrial transition, and the major loss in that transitory process is income, is output. That our own GDP has declined steadily over the last 10 years, since 2015, from $600 billion to $350 billion today. So if that's what you are trying to tax or borrow against, our exports leads the decline. So if you are trying to rely on exports or tax or debt, you borrow against income, which is the error of the past decade, that both the Jonathan administration that was there when the oil commodity prices collapsed, and the Buhari regime needed to find a path away from income dependence towards asset dependence. You find that any country that is still struggling to depend on, income or output, including Japan, including Germany, including all the Euro area countries that were industrial champions and were trade champions, are stagnating or in decline. Japan shares the common feature with Nigeria that its GDP has declined steadily over the last 1 decade. So it's not about, I'm strong, I'm an industrial giant. It's about the reality of global post-industrial transition is that output dependence is a thing of the past. Replace that with asset dependence. And some of the best examples of countries depending on assets include the United States, that continues to grow steadily, led by its companies. India, that has jumped from being the 10th GDP in the world to the 5th, and will soon be the 3rd. We soon overtake Japan and Germany to be the 3rd largest GDP. And you look at what they are doing. They are connecting global liquidity to their local assets. And I had the CEO of Investindia say that since 2015, they have attracted $500 billion in FDI. So it really doesn't matter what they lose from exports. They're able to generate and more than compensate for it by turning to assets. Nigeria is rich in assets. Look at Saudi leveraging on assets. Look at, UAE or even, Malaysia. So to find the resources to meet welfare needs, to do infrastructure, to be strong, to build reserves. Nigeria is very rich in assets. We are rich in state-owned companies, and we need to take them to the market. Raise 1% equity, raise 5% equity. I'm not saying sell them. Establish their market value. So we don't even know what they are worth. Our balance sheet is very weak. Compare that with Saudi that took Aramco to the market in 2019. And Aramco is worth more than $2 trillion now. So is there a $500 billion hiding somewhere in the corporate assets that we own? Will we be the better for it if we discover those values? Because you can leverage them. We have real estate that are potentially valuable, are not valued. They are idle. They are not hidden. You have the National Stadium, you have the Federal Secretariat. Many of the barracks, Bonny Camp, sitting next to Eko Atlantic City, should be relocated. The market value is going to be similar to the market value of Eko Atlantic City. We earn nothing from it. We borrow 2 billion, we borrow 3 billion. Think about what you can fetch if you could leverage your real estate assets. We have infrastructure. We are the only big economy in the world that remains, that builds airports, but not terminals. And where the money is made, 40% of the revenue in aviation is made in terminals, where people can shop, where hospitality can be provided. Some even provide office accommodation, some provide hotel accommodation. We don't build terminals, and investors, we jump at that if you open that to investors.